that feeling, right? When your brain has this great idea, or even just something simple, but it just sort of freezes when you try to say it in English.
Oh, absolutely. That hesitation.
Maybe it's the fear, of making a mistake, or just not finding the words.
Yeah, the words just aren't quite there.
Well, if that sounds like you, you're definitely not alone. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really helpful guide. It's all about improving English communication.
Right.
And our mission, really, is to pull out the key strategies, the insights, the mindset shifts that can help you find your voice. Speak with, well, more confidence and flow.
Exactly. And this guide, it makes a really strong point right at the start. It says English today is, it's much more than just a subject.
More than grammar rules.
Way more. It's framed as this, essential tool for connecting with people globally, for opportunities, and honestly, for building your own self-confidence.
And that's really what this deep dive is aiming for.
Yeah.
We want to help make that potential real for you. We'll unpack this source material, turn the advice into practical steps you can actually take.
Okay, let's get into it. So the guide kicks off by looking at the big picture. Communication itself.
Yeah.
It points at something pretty obvious when you think about it. Successful people, whether in business, relationships, leadership, they almost always have strong communication skills. It's a core thing.
And I found it interesting how the guide defines good communication. It's not just about perfect speaking, is it?
Not at all. It's about clarity. It's about making the other person feel genuinely heard.
Okay.
And being able to express your own thoughts, your ideas, even emotions with confidence, and importantly, with connection.
And here's the kicker, I think, from the source. It's not some magic talent you're born with.
No, that's crucial. The guide is super clear. Communication is a skill.
A skill.
Like learning to ride a bike or play piano. It can be learned, it can be practiced, and you can get better at it.
That feels like a really big deal, doesn't it? It takes away the whole, I'm just not good at languages excuse.
Completely. It means you can actively work on it. And the guide stresses it's not just about, memorizing vocab lists forever,
Right.
though that helps. But the real core is understanding people, expressing yourself clearly, and making that connection.
So framing it as a skill tells us, okay, this needs time. It needs a strategy.
And consistency.
Yeah.
Definitely consistency, which leads us right into what the guide calls the absolute foundation before you even think about techniques.
Ah, the mindset piece.
Okay.
Yes. The guide spends a good chunk of time here saying it's critical.
It really is.
So what are the key mindset points from the source? The first one, well, it hits hard. Perfection is your enemy.
That's a big one. It really pushes back on needing to speak flawlessly.
Because nobody does. Right?
Exactly. The guide reminds us native speakers, they stumble, they search for words, they even make grammar mistakes all the time. So the goal isn't to be like a robot. It's about being clear, being kind to yourself too, and just speaking with confidence. That's where real communication lives.
Okay, so ditch perfectionism. Got it. What's the next mental hurdle the guide addresses?
Well, it goes right for the big one. The fear of judgment.
Oh, yeah.
It totally validates that fear, worrying about being laughed at or corrected in front of others or just not being understood. It says that's normal.
Okay, it's normal, but
Yeah.
how do you deal with it?
Well, here's the powerful part. The guide points out that every single fluent speaker you admire, they went through that exact same fear. Every single one.
Oh,
Yeah. The difference wasn't that they didn't feel scared. The difference was they felt it, and they kept speaking anyway.
Kept speaking. Sounds simple, but wow, that's tough when you're in the moment.
It is tough. Which leads to the third mindset pillar in the guide. Focus on progress over perfection.
Okay, progress. How does that work?
It means actively celebrating the small wins.
Yes.
Like, did you manage one sentence today that felt impossible last week? That's huge.
Right. Acknowledge the small steps.
Be proud of just showing up and trying. It reframes mistakes not as failures, but as just necessary steps, part of learning.
Shifting from fearing mistakes to kind of welcoming them as proof you're trying, that feels like a really important shift before you even get to the how.
Exactly. It sets the stage. So with that foundation, the guide then basically opens up this toolbox packed with practical strategies, 20 of them actually.
20.
But maybe instead of just listing them, we can dig into some of the really core ones, the ones the guide emphasizes most. Think of them as ways to make English feel less like a chore and more, natural.
Okay, sounds good. Lay it on us. What's the number one? The big one.
The guide puts this right at the top, non-negotiable almost. Speak English daily.
Daily, okay.
Even if it's just 5 minutes. Seriously. Consistency beats intensity here. It's about making it a habit.
Right, but the classic question, speak to whom? What if you're alone?
See, the guide has simple answers for that. It suggests talking to yourself.
To yourself.
Yeah. Describe what you're doing out loud. Okay, I'm making coffee now. Just opening the window? Or describe what you see outside. The guide argues the simple act builds fluency from the inside out. It gets your brain and mouth used to working together in English.
Talking to yourself. Okay, it feels maybe a little odd at first, but I can see how just physically saying the words is the key.
It really is. What else helps with just getting comfortable hearing your own voice in English?
Good question.
Another strategy the guide highlights is recording yourself speaking.
The phone memo trick.
Exactly. Record a short thought, maybe read something small, then listen back. It feels weird, definitely.
I'll bet.
But it gives you this incredibly objective feedback. You hear your actual sound, your rhythm, your pauses, pronunciation points. It's a great way to notice progress you might otherwise miss.
That makes sense. Hearing it back is different from just thinking you know how you sound.
Yeah.
What about sounding? Well, more natural, like native speakers. Does the guide cover that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A key technique it recommends is called shadowing practice.
Shadowing.
You find a short clip, audio, video, whatever, of a native speaker you like listening to. You play one sentence, hit pause, and then you repeat it,
Exactly.
trying to match everything.
Everything. The tone, the speed, the ups and downs, even the emotion if you can.
The guide explains this, helps you internalize the sort of music of English, the natural patterns that aren't just about single words.
The music of English.
Yeah.
I like that. It's not just flat words. Okay, what about building up what you can actually say? Vocabulary, phrases.
Yes, and the guide has a really practical tip here. Focus on learning common phrases, not just single words in isolation.
So like chunks of language.
Exactly. Instead of just learning the word coffee, learn, can I get a coffee? Or how about a coffee? The guide calls these chunks and says they're the real building blocks for conversation. You learn how words actually fit together.
That's smart. Learn phrases you can use immediately. Okay, but what about pronunciation? Getting feedback without feeling, embarrassed?
Good point. The guide suggests using apps for pronunciation practice. It mentions specific ones like ELSA Speak. Duolingo has features. Speechling.
Oh, right.
It frames them as like having a private tutor in your pocket. Gives you instant feedback, no judgment.
That's a great way to build some confidence privately before you, talk to real people. Speaking of which, what's the most direct way the guide pushes for?
Oh, easily. Joining conversation groups. No question.
Online or in person?
Both. The guide mentions online options like HelloTalk or Tandem, finding Facebook groups, or looking for local meetups. It says talking to real humans, navigating that actual back and forth.
Yeah.
That's one of the fastest ways to really accelerate your skills. You have to listen, you have to respond, you have to keep it moving.
Makes total sense. Nothing beats real interaction. But okay, that classic moment.
Yeah.
You're talking, and the word, it just vanishes. Blank. Big fear for lots of people.
Totally. And the guide offers what it calls a communication superpower for exactly that situation. Learn to paraphrase.
Paraphrase, you mean describe it.
Huh? Exactly. If you forget umbrella, say, the thing you use when it's raining, or that thing that keeps you dry, the guide stresses that keeping the conversation flowing by describing the idea is way better than just stopping dead. It actually shows flexibility.
That is a huge tip. Focus on getting the meaning across, not the perfect word right now.
Yeah.
What else makes communication smoother, more engaging?
Well, the guide reminds us it's not just the words coming out of your mouth. It strongly recommends using your hands and body language.
Nonverbal stuff.
Yeah. Gestures are totally natural. Native speakers use them constantly. They add emphasis. They help convey meaning, especially if you're maybe searching for a word.
Right. And using a mirror, like you mentioned for recording, could help with seeing your own body language too.
For sure. It's the whole package. Oh, and the guide also really hammers home the importance of listening, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. How does it frame that?
Crucially, there's a whole section on focusing on listening. The argument is basically good communication is at least 50% listening effectively. It encourages you to actively notice how speakers pause, their intonation, how they react. The logic is simple. The better you listen, the better you'll speak. It informs your own output.
And are there easy ways to practice listening, according to the guide? Ways to fit it in?
Definitely. It points to things like using podcasts and audiobooks.
Passive learning.
Kind of passive, yeah. Listen while you're commuting, doing chores, walking the dog. You just absorb vocabulary, rhythm, natural ways of phrasing things almost without trying. It really builds up over time.
So we've got daily speaking, listening practice, learning phrases, using apps, talking to people. What about when you do get corrected? The guide had a specific take on handling feedback, right?
It did, and it ties back to the mindset stuff. It's basically, accept feedback, don't fear it.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Totally. But the guide suggests reframing it. Think of correction not as criticism, but as a gift.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah. If someone takes the time to help you improve, it means they care enough to engage. The guide suggests actually thanking them. It shifts the whole feeling from embarrassment to, like, gratitude for the help.
That's a really powerful reframe. Tough, but powerful. Okay, and then the guide kind of wraps up all these strategies with one overarching principle.
Yes. The final, maybe most important strategy. Be patient with yourself.
The long game.
Exactly. The guide is realistic. Fluency is a journey. It has good days and bad days. That's normal. The ultimate strategy is just perseverance. Keep showing up, keep practicing, and be kind to yourself through it all. Value the effort itself.
Such an important reminder. Learning anything complex takes time, takes resilience. And doesn't the guide use a story to kind of illustrate all this?
It does, yeah. A really relatable one about someone named Maya.
Okay, Maya, what was her situation?
The guide describes how Maya used to just freeze up, completely freeze when she needed to speak English. She'd avoid job interviews, important meetings, anything where she felt put on the spot. The fear was just too intense.
Wow, okay, so what did she do based on the source?
She started really small, took the advice literally just 10 minutes a day. That was her commitment.
10 minutes. What did she do in that time?
A few of the things we talked about. The guide says she talked to herself in the mirror, she listened actively to podcasts, and she found an online language club to practice speaking with others, just for short bursts.
Okay, consistent, small actions.
Yeah.
And what happened? What outcome does the guide describe?
Well, the guide says after about 6 months of doing this, just consistently, Maya had this big challenge come up, a presentation at work in English.
Oh, wow. High stakes.
Yeah, and the guide is very specific here, which I think is important. It says her grammar, still not perfect, her accent, still clearly there.
So she wasn't magically transformed into a native speaker.
Not at all. That's the point the guide makes. But she stood up, she gave the presentation, her message was clear, she sounded confident, and the guide notes really connected with people. They were moved.
That story really brings it home, doesn't it? The guide's main message. You don't need perfect English. You don't need to sound like someone else.
Exactly. What matters is your English.
Your English.
Your voice, your unique perspective, your story, and just the courage to share it using the English you have as you're building it. Maya's story shows that impact, that connection. It comes from being authentic, not from reaching some imaginary standard of perfection.
That's a really powerful thought to land on. And just acknowledging the effort, the effort you listening are putting in just by being on this path.
Absolutely. And recognizing that every bit of effort is creating progress. It is building that confidence step by step.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the guide's wisdom on English communication, we've seen it's definitely a skill. You can master it. It starts with that internal shift, that mindset change away from fear towards progress.
Right.
And then layering on these practical, consistent habits. And that story about Maya, it just leaves us with that powerful idea that what truly matters is your own voice, your English.
Finding it and using it, that's the goal.
So maybe this leaves a question for you to reflect on after listening. How might shifting your focus, focusing less on chasing some kind of technical perfection and more on just finding and expressing your unique voice, your story in English, how might that change things?
How might it change who you connect with? What opportunities might open up?
It's something to think about. And maybe, just maybe, pick one or two strategies from our discussion today, the ones that really clicked for you.
Yeah, just one or two, and commit to trying them out consistently. Starting today, maybe?
Just see what happens.
Yeah.
Give it a go. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
You look forward to the next one.